Hi, I'm Rob Vanstone, and you're listening to the Rider Outsiders podcast.
Welcome to the Rider Outsiders, where we talk CFL, football, and your Saskatchewan Roughriders. I'm Mitch Wiles with Dylan Robson. The Riders are on a bye week, but the show must go on. Dylan, what do we have lined up today?
Well, you know what? Over the bye week, I had a chance to sit down and visit with Rob Vanstone, who's the official Leader Post columnist for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And Rob Vanstone just has some great stories. He's seen some great stuff. You know what? Why don't we got that clip? Why don't we just play it right now, just to give the fans a little sample on what they're going to hear from Rob Vanstone. Let's play the clip.
To have experienced that, to have talked to Ronnie about it, 20 years after the fact, nearly 30 years after the fact, and hear his voice still breaking with emotion, talking about that game. 2008, only a few months before he died, and I asked him about that game, and he got choked up.
So there you have it. Not only does Rob Vanstone have that incredible personal story, but he's got some great detail on the subtleties of the game, things he's seen as he covers the Riders, and how we can improve going forward. So it's a great talk about football. I know you guys are going to love it. But right now, we got to get started with some quick hits.
Toronto's Dylan Wynn was suspended for one game by the CFL for his hit on CJ Gable, the running back. Appeared to be knocked out before he was even hit by Wynn, and it was a nasty headshot. Dylan, do you think one game suspension is enough for this hit?
I tend to be in the school of thought where if you do a hit like that and it seems to be that intentional as Wynn's hit looks to be, you should be out for as long as the guy who received the hit ends up being out, if there's a concussion there or anything like that. So I don't think it is enough, no.
I agree. I think one game was a little bit light for that hit. He just seemed like he was tracking him down and just led with his head. That's exactly what the league's trying to get away from. I
got to say, for those who didn't get a chance to see it, the player is down. The ball carrier is essentially down, and Wynn torpedoes directly towards him.
Yeah, uncalled for. Next up, the REDBLACKS turned out to be no match for the Stampeders. We pumped their tires a little bit last week, but Trevor Harris laid an egg against Calgary. Dylan, is this a case of Ottawa just showing up flat, or is Calgary just on another level?
Calgary's on another level. I kind of said that at the beginning of the year. I think the fans know it too. Calgary's on another level. They're a regular season machine. They could go 10-0 easily, I think, depending on some of the injuries maybe they might be piling up. But Calgary's on another level.
Yeah, that defense looked insane. Next up, Argonauts decided to punt down 1 point with 2.5 minutes remaining in the fourth quarter, and it didn't work out for them. So, hindsight's 2020, Dylan, but was that the right call to punt it away with 2.5 minutes, 1 point down?
I saw it as it was happening, and I thought to myself, no, I would not be punting in this situation. Even if they gamble, don't make it, and are able to hold their opponent to a field goal, they're still only down by 4. They've got time for a driving touchdown if they need it. But still, what were they on the 43-yard line or something?
Somewhere around there, yeah.
On their own 43, you got to go for it. Just, you hear me preach week in. I'm a fan of exciting football. Having said that, I am just a fan. I'm not a coach, but I would have went for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in the same camp there. At what point would you punt there? 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes, 4 minutes? Or are you just going for it?
Yeah. Well, 4 minutes, there's time. It seems close, but yeah, 4 minutes, there's definitely a lot of time, and you could probably punt it there. But it gets under the 3-minute warning, though. That's when I'm really thinking, yeah, we should probably be going for this. Because it's like putting off the inevitable. Well, let's not do our winning drive now. Let's do our winning drive later. No, just do it now. You're on the field. Do it,
All right. Next up, talk about a meltdown. The BC Lions were down 17-0, but led by Travis Lulay, they came back to beat the Blue Bombers 20-17 on Saturday. Not sure if you had a chance to take a look at that game, Dylan, but what do you think went wrong there?
You know what? Lulay went right is what happened, I think. Struggled maybe to get some points there earlier in the game, but Lulay's hungry. He's always been a hungry player. He fights for those wins. And what went wrong is Travis Lulay. That's what went wrong for the Blue Bombers.
Totally agree. Lulay with his first start of the year. Stats were pretty remarkable. 28 for 41, 326 yards, a touchdown and interception. And that's the quarterback on the other side of the field, Matt Nichols, threw 3 interceptions, so it's hard to win football games throwing 3 picks. Oh, but we do have a little bit of news here. Brandon Bridge has been named the starting quarterback for the Saskatchewan Roughriders for their rematch against Hamilton next week. Sounds like Zach Collaros is still a day-by-day. What do you think about that, Dylan?
It doesn't surprise me. I wasn't entirely hopeful that Zach Collaros would be back before this game after the bye week here. And I think Brandon Bridge obviously going to get the start over Watford based on what we've seen so far this season. But 6-game injured list. Will we see him once that's over? Because I know they can pull the guy off the 6th game if he's ready.
Yeah.
But will it take the full 6 game before we see Zach Collaros? I'm thinking so.
Yeah, and I think if they pull him off early, then they have to all of his salary counts towards the cap. So if they are a little bit tight for space, they'll try to hold off, especially if Bridge is playing decent football. And another quarterback injury, Bo Levi Mitchell left the game this weekend, and I guess he's not actually practicing. He was just watching practice. So how do you think about Calgary going forward if they're going to lose Bo Levi Mitchell for a couple games?
You know what? Sorry, who do they have backing up Bo Levi Mitchell?
Oh, my goodness. Well, he played. He finished the game this weekend. His name is Nick Arbuckle. Arbuckle.
So we have Nick Arbuckle's backing up. I don't know much about Nick Arbuckle.
He's 24 from Georgia State.
The thing about Calgary is they seem like a system team, and I believe they have a system in which they can have their backup come in, and if he does his job, that could be a big if. But if he does, then the steamroller keeps rolling as far as Calgary goes. So it's too early for me to say anything on how Calgary's going to look if they have to go forward without Bo Levi Mitchell.
Well, the good thing, Calgary has Montreal next week, so in likelihood they can still win that game without Bo Levi. That their defense is the best in the league, I believe. All right, I think it's time now for our feature interview of the show. You sat down with Rob Vanstone. What can you tell us about that?
Rob, he's been covering the Riders since I think it was 1996, and he's just got some great insight. He's watched every game. He's watched every game since then, obviously, and he's got some great insight on the subtleties of the games. He's got some great insight on what the Riders are doing, what's not working, and so really it's just a great chance to hear a good football talk. That's what you're going to hear in this interview. Some good insight as well on the QB situation and the O-line situation, the running game, and it's really just a great interview, so go ahead and check it out.
Here I am, Dylan Robson with Rider Outsiders Podcast, exclusive interview with sports writing local legend Rob Vanstone. Rob, nice to have you.
A pleasure. Thanks so much, Dylan.
So here we are, in the man cave, where we watch a little sports, watch a little wrestling, and this and that. But let's talk about the Saskatchewan Roughriders right now. How do you think we look on the field?
It's an interesting one to assess, because how much weight do you attach to each of the past 2 games? Do you look at them and say this is a team that lost to the Montreal Alouettes unfathomably, or do you appraise them as a team that beat the Hamilton Tiger Cats unexpectedly? Maybe those 2 games just balanced out. 2 results that I don't think a lot of people anticipated. Maybe that's a wash, and maybe 2-2 is what they should be. I think they played really well in the first game and deservedly beat the Toronto Argonauts, and they got it handed to them the second week of the season, losing 40-17 in Ottawa. So, okay, those results were just, and if you look at the 2 games after that, probably should have gone 1-1. So 2-2 is, I think, about where they should be, and it's not that distressing when you consider some of the adversity that they've faced. They've been below 500 at the 4-game mark the first 2 years that Chris Jones was here, so they're ahead of where they were last year, and they ended up winning 10 games last year and almost got to the Grey Cup. So 2-2 is, I think, a good sign for them considering the adversity that they faced. That Montreal game being one sign of it, and the offense in general being, I think, a form of adversity whenever they take the field.
Yeah, it's interesting how it really is just Rough Rider style football to lose to the worst team in the league and beat the best team in the league back-to-back weeks. What do you see about Duron Carter? So he had some struggles with the defense earlier on. This past game against Hamilton, how did he look to you?
I thought he played pretty well on defense. That defense as a whole was tremendous. It was an amazing job by Chris Jones, and they moved Duron Carter away from a situation where he could be one-on-one with the other team's most dangerous receiver. Deontay Spencer of Ottawa had run right by him for starters, and then came Montreal, and they got torched again. So I think Chris Williams on that occasion. So I don't think they wanted Brandon Banks opposite Duron Carter, so they put Ed Gainey on him. Duron Carter was on Terrence Tolliver, another lanky player, and I think that was a pretty good matchup. And Duron Carter overall played very well. I still think the question is that a wise expenditure of a six-figure salary to play Duron Carter on defense? You're paying him well over $100,000 to be on offense, and then you add to that the state of the offense, such as it is. And it's hard really to convincingly argue that Duron Carter shouldn't be on offense. Maybe that would help them out on that side of the football. I think they can find a defensive back who can do what Duron Carter is doing or approximate that for a lot less money. Put Duron Carter where he can help the team the most, and I don't think that's on defense, irrespective of how well he played that last game.
Yeah, it's funny. Ed Gainey was on Brandon Banks, and there was a couple times where Ed Gainey got burned, gave a big play, a couple big plays, I think, and the crowd just sort of like, well, at least Ed Gainey was there. You know, had that been Duron Carter giving up those big plays, I think there would have been a little more upsettedness, for lack of an actual word. I think we're hard on Duron Carter. I think the fans are usually on coaches when it comes to controversial decisions in Rider Nation. What do you think about our O-line and or running game and how those two are connected?
And there's always an interconnection between the two. The first game of the year when they won, they were committed to running the football. They ran more than they passed, and that hasn't been typical for a Stephen McAdoo offense. Last year they threw exactly 2/3 of the time. So for them to flip the script and run as often as they did, and quite effectively against Toronto, showed me that they can pound the ball when they have to. But then they've either abandoned it or abandoned a focus on one running back over the subsequent three games. Jerome Messam had 21 carries in the season opener against Toronto, and since then they've gone to this strange three-headed running back situation that seems to guarantee that nobody's going to get into a groove. You're dressing two American running backs, so one of them is standing there basically doing nothing. It's just not a smart use of personnel. I think all three of the running backs they have, Trey Mason, Marcus Thigpen, Jerome Messam, I think they can all contribute, but they can't all contribute at once. And again, it's roster utilization. The offensive line had struggled a lot especially the second game against Ottawa. It's not a fortress by any stretch of the imagination, but I think they've shown that they can get by with it. It wasn't a situation against Hamilton where the dam broke and everybody's in the quarterback's face right away. There's certainly some deficiencies with that line, but I think they can. I don't think it's crucial that it get better right away. Maybe in time it will. It's passable, but for them to be anything but passable in a tough division, they've got to improve up there. They just won a game with that offensive line, and they won that game on a 34-yard run by Marcus Thigpen, and Dan Clark made a nice block. Brendan Labatt took out two guys, so Taron Vaughn made a nice block. So on the left side of the offensive line, cleared the hole helped to clear the hole for the game-winning touchdown run. So you can look at that and say it's coming around, but there's still a long way to go.
Yeah, and I think that O-line has been passable for the last few years. I think it's hard to really build a solid O-line that stays together and works well together. I'm wondering also about something that's sort of crossed my mind. I'm looking across the league and I see low attendance numbers, and I'm only 36 years old, but
you're so young. My radio is 7 years older than you.
But I do remember when the CFL was in a tough state. I remember that god awful Las Vegas posse Canadian anthem, the "Oh Christmas Tree" version, and low attendance, and us having to go into the U.S. market and that not working. Remember the Riders Telethon. When you look at the low attendance across the league in big cities, does that concern you for the state of the CFL?
There's always going to be concerns in those markets. It's almost inversely proportional. The stronger franchises are generally in the smaller centers. It's not like baseball where you can say, okay, the Yankees are all powerful and the Dodgers have all this money. It seems to be the other way around in the Canadian Football League, and the Rough Riders in the smallest market have the biggest following. But you look around, it's always a concern when you see what's happening in Toronto, because basically you need an owner who's more of a benefactor. You're not going to pull any money out of that team. You've got to do it just because you care about Canadian professional football or you want to own a football team. You have to be willing to absorb those losses. And if the league ever reaches a point where they can't find anybody who's just willing to take it on the chin financially, they're in trouble. Vancouver is going to be a tough spot. They don't really do much in terms of marketing. David Braley is a basic... he owns a team, but he's not really that invested in owning it anymore. So that's a concern. And what's going to happen with Montreal if they keep struggling? And again, the Wettenhalls have been a benevolent owner. If they decide, boy, we got to make some money out of this, well, there's no Anthony Calvillo to take him to Grey Cups anymore. So you're almost dependent upon the goodwill and good nature of some of the owners. And if that is to turn, then what happens overall? There's almost two ways of looking at the league, though, because the TV ratings are strong. And but are they cannibalizing the attendance in order for them to be strong? That's always a concern. It's the TV product keeps getting better and better, and people's televisions get better and better and bigger. And it's easy to stay at home and watch a game. And so are you cannibalizing the product by doing that, by having features like the mic'd up games and giving the fans at home access to things that you can't get when you're paying a pretty good coin to experience in the stadium? And that's a delicate balance. I think by and large, if you look at the Rough Riders, they've lifted every blackout since 2007, and that's concurrent with an elevation in attendance and revenues. So you can look at this market and say, sure, but there's a different investment on the part of the fans here than there would be in a market where the fans might be a little more indifferent and say, okay, I'm just going to sit in the back step and watch the game for free tonight. And I don't have to battle traffic, and I don't have to battle some of the irritations that you might have in Toronto or in Vancouver. The traffic out there is murder, and you're probably paying to park in some of those places. You don't have to some of the same situations here. So, but I think the league's got to look at some ways to jazz up their product. If you're looking at the attendances and them being disappointing, I think you can look at a lot of the games so far this season and say, well, this isn't the kind of wide open high wire act that the CFL used to be. And that used to be the CFL's niche. It was exciting. They could say, well, the NFL's 3 downs in a cloud of dust. The CFL is this exciting product. And if there is a gap, it's not even detectable sometimes. The NFL is really upped its passing game and its excitement, and the CFL is kind of settled into a rut where you don't have those shootouts as often, at least early this season, and that could be an obstacle they're going to face. Maybe the caliber of play is having an impact on the attendance as well, but it's early.
With the Rough Riders, more so than any other team that I know of or that I follow, those regular season games, they mean so much, because every win, it's like, we do not want Hamilton or Ottawa or Winnipeg or whoever coming into our stadium and beating us. We really want to show them what it's all about. When you cover the games from the work that you do as a writer, do you still get a chance to be a fan, or are you so embedded into your process that it's difficult to see that fan side of things?
You have to put that aside. I don't think it's any secret what my childhood was. And I don't think it's any secret that I lost my voice at the 89 Grey Cup. I didn't cover that as a reporter. I covered that as somebody in the 500, or I went to that and sat in the 500 level. And my voice didn't come back till the following Thursday. I had season tickets for 40 years. So I think people know, people who know me know what my background is, but you have to put that on hold. A journalism professor named Nick Russell once said, you can't cover the parade if you're marching in the band. And that's something you've always got to keep in mind. Now, I think you could look at it as what I have in common with the fans is that I'm very, very, very interested in the team. I have been my whole life. And I'm passionate about being interested in the team. So I think having had that perspective, I think it can help me in writing about the team because I have an appreciation for what it does, why it exists, where it's been. And maybe that's beneficial. And I think maybe it gives me an idea of what type of things the fans are zeroing in on. If they're elated about a game, if they're deflated about a game. So I think I can use it selectively. You'd have to be unhuman to go to that 2013 Grey Cup and not feel absolutely amazed about it. But the priority at the time was trying to get my column in on time. I didn't see Darian Durant hoist the trophy over his head until I saw the highlights that night. Because when he was doing that, I had my nose buried in the computer. So I missed virtually all the postgame. My wife was in the stands with my friend Lori from Vancouver, and they were texting me. And my sister was at the game with her daughters, and they were my nieces, and they were texting me. And I started getting messages from all my friends telling me their stories. And it's like, well, that's really nice, and I'm really happy to see that. But I got to get a column in. So yeah. I feel like I missed the party. I never saw Darian with the cup over his head. And that's a little disappointing when I look back on it. It's like I should have told myself, okay, just make sure you give yourself 15 seconds and soak it in a little bit because you're just witnessing history. I was more preoccupied at the time with documenting it than witnessing it. And I understand that sometimes you have to watch it to document it. But as soon as that game ends, it's a race against time. So I feel like I missed something that day by not being more of a fan, by not stepping back for a couple of minutes and just taking it in. Because I've only seen pictures, I've only seen images on television, I've only heard stories.
Yeah, and well, for what it's worth, I have the Leader Post exclusive coverage stored away in safekeeping from after the 2013 Grey Cup win. So thank you for documenting that history.
I'll be in a box at some point myself, so maybe you can put me with it. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Yeah, and so having said that, where do you see the Rough Riders finishing this year?
Oh, boy. I mean, the big unknown is quarterbacking, or maybe the offense as a whole, because there's still some moving pieces that have to be addressed. And, where's Deron Carter going to play? Suppose that Zach Collaros enjoys a quick return to health, and suppose that Deron Carter enjoys a quick return to playing wide receiver. That could change a lot of things as far as the potency of that offense. And as we sit here today, who's to know? I think at worst, the Rough Riders will be, a crossover team. Their defense is already of Grey Cup caliber. I think that's pretty, and that's what you would expect from a team in year 3 under Chris Jones. So they're going to make the playoffs. They could very well make the West playoffs if they don't dig themselves too big of a hole. And they've got 3 really tough games coming up now. But, even if they replicate what they did last year and go through the East, they almost got to the Grey Cup doing that. As a minimum, they'll have a 500 season. I don't foresee a disaster here, despite that Montreal game. But as far as the ceiling, I think it's a bit of a lower ceiling because there's still some pretty big questions about that team, whereas Calgary, it looks like they might just keep waltzing regardless of how seriously injured Bo Levi Mitchell is. And Winnipeg looks like a really good team. And Edmonton is playing host to the Grey Cup this year, and they're hoping to do what the Riders did in 2013, and they've got Mike Riley. So there's that echelon of 3 in the West, and unless the Riders can get some offense, I don't see them finishing ahead of Edmonton, Winnipeg, or Calgary. That's a pretty tall order if you can't get the offense in order.
Real quick, are the Riders in the best shape with Zach Collaros taking the snaps?
You'd have to say yes, as long as Zach Collaros can prove that he's not porcelain. I mean, the rap on him coming into this season was that he'd had some concussions before, and he had experienced knee surgery. So could he stay healthy? And then in this first half of his second game, he's already out. I don't think his ability is in question. I think his availability is in question. If he can be their quarterback for the long haul this season, that's massive for them. Because I think there's got to be some concerns about Brandon Bringe and David Watford at this juncture. And you even look at the manner in which they've been juggled. It's obvious there isn't a ton of confidence in either one of them. Otherwise, they would just say, this guy is our guy until Zach is back. So having seen this rotation, they're pretty much telling you that they really don't have a lot of faith in either one of them right now. So Zach Collaros, if he's not that guy, that means trouble, and they're going to have to win a lot of games like they did against Hamilton and only allow 13 points.
Okay, once again, thanks to Rob Vanstone for that interview. It was great to have him on, and I look forward to having him again in the future. And stay tuned, though, because we're not quite done with that one yet. As we showed at the beginning of the episode here, there's a great little story he's got about this time he went to go see a Ron Lancaster game, and as a fan, as a kid, and it's just unreal story. We're going to be playing that, the rest of that interview, right at the end here, so stay tuned for that.
And thanks, Dylan, for doing that interview. It was great to hear Vanstone on the show, and I can't wait to get him back on to tell some more stories. But I think now it's time for the Rouge.
Well, last week he kind of put me on the spot. He said, "Hey, why don't you do an intro? We'll record it live, and we'll open it up with that segment each time."
Yeah.
So we did it. It was okay. But I thought to myself after that, I got a whole week to work on this intro. I got a whole week to work on it. So naturally, for the last 7 days, I haven't been working on it. Didn't even think about it. Now here we are. We're about to go to the Rouge. Still don't have it ready. So maybe we should just try it live again. I don't know.
I think so. This is our big new segment. So we need something flashy here. If you think you can make it happen, I'll count you in.
I'll do what I can do to count me in.
I'm going to count you in for the intro for the Rouge. We're going to record this and use this every week. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1.
It's time for the Rouge. 1 point on Canadian football from your Rider Outsiders.
That was pretty good. I actually like that.
You like that one? I like that too.
That was pretty good.
Pretty good.
I may have been breathing in the microphone while you were doing it, though. But
yeah, you don't want to breathe.
Not on the recording, but we'll use it for now. Okay, here we go. We're now in the Rouge. Dylan, what's your Rouge of the week?
Rouge of the week. We've had a bye this week. I want to get to the point of the run game. We have tremendous potential in that running field from our running backs, and we're not seeing it. We saw it a little bit. It won us the game the previous week. So I hope that we're going to be start out with a strong Messam and then bring in Thigpen, some of those other little guys, bounce them around towards the end of the game once the linebackers and stuff start getting tired.
Yep.
That's all we got to do. I want to see the run game, and I want to see it this week.
Okay. I like it. That's a good Rouge. I got one for you. Here we go. My Rouge of the week. What I need to see is the Riders to get a passing game. I want to see them get out there and start working those receivers. We've got some talented guys, but throwing for only 140 yards passing a game just isn't doing it. So I want to see them focus in, make some catches, get some first downs, get that offense going. Let's see that passing game going. What do you think?
You know what? I like it. I'm saying running backs. You're saying receivers, run game, pass game. That sounds like 2 good points. We might have just scored a safety here.
Yes, we need that offense going. Okay, that's the Rouge. And one of my favorite segments, or my favorite segment of the show, the Mayor of the Week. And there's a couple candidates for disappointing and lackluster performances this week. Luckily, the Rough Riders did not play, so they're sort of off the hook. Dylan, do you have your Met of the Week?
You know what? I do. As we all know, the season started a little earlier this year. Mm-hmm. That could be some of the reasons we're seeing lower attendance across the stadium. Maybe not across the country. But the starting of the season early, that's fine. The thing that it's kind of getting to me is we got a bye week this week. We got a bye week coming up, just down the road as well. A lot of bye weeks, to me, it makes the season longer. I get it. The players probably really appreciate that. It helps them, keep their careers going a little longer, ideally. But too many bye weeks, and I can't be watching Toronto Argonauts football, every second week. I gotta be watching Rider football. So my Met of the Week: too many buys.
Too many buys. We got what? Riders got a buy in 3 weeks' time. It's different. I think, is this the first? It might be the second year they're doing this extended schedule. Is it the first year?
First year, yeah.
Yeah, first year. We'll see how it goes. I don't know. I think you're right that the idea was that maybe we'll reduce injuries to give a second break during the season. But I'm with you on that one. Too many buys. But my Met of the Week I was very disappointed with my boy Trevor Harris going 14 for 22, 93 yards and 2 interceptions, and getting embarrassed by Calgary. I was ready to trade the farm for Trevor Harris. I was after watching that mic'd up game. I thought he was really commanding the field and really was a high level quarterback. And I still think he is, but holy smokes, you can't lay an egg like that. And I understand it is against Calgary, but Ottawa is the best in the East. So Trevor Harris was on the naughty list, my meh of the week. Dylan, 4 football games next week, starting off with your Saskatchewan Roughriders at Hamilton. How do you see that game going down?
Wow, geez. I'm going to pick Saskatchewan, the Roughriders of Saskatchewan, to win that game. It's not going to be easy, obviously. Ron Carter had a great game last time they met. We got to stick with that. There could be some more shuffling of players into different positions. I think that has worked from Jones, and I think if we do it again, it could work again. Like I said, though, need that run game, like you said, need that pass game. Need to inject that offense with some exciting football. Please. Brandon Bridge, Steve McAdoo, are you listening?
We got lucky there last week. Definitely needs some offense. So, yeah, I'm hoping Saskatchewan, keeps doing what they're doing, but it gets a little bit more help from the offense. Special teams played well. Defense played pretty good, but, yeah, we need some offense, please. Especially at home. Hamilton's is gonna try to bring it in front of their home fans. Next up,
I'm going to say 24-18 Saskatchewan.
24-18. Right, I like it. I'm there with you. Next up in the schedule, Friday, BC at Ottawa. BC's coming off a big win with Lulay there. We talked about earlier, and Ottawa being embarrassed and would like to come back with a win at home, obviously. How do you see that game going down?
I'm going to have to go with momentum on this one. I'm going to go with BC. BC over Ottawa. Ottawa's momentum obviously halted from the Calgary's win, and BC obviously on the upswing with their momentum after that comeback. So BC over Ottawa at home.
I'm going to go the opposite. I'm going to say Ottawa. I think they just got some mental block against Calgary. I don't think Harris has ever beat Calgary. I think Ottawa brings it back together at home. All right, then we got a doubleheader Saturday. First up would be Winnipeg at Toronto. Who wins that one?
I'm going to go with Winnipeg on that one. I'm going to look at their recent loss here as an anomaly, and I think Winnipeg's still a good team. They're going to take the Toronto.
This is a tough one for me. It's tough. With Ricky Ray down, they got Franklin, and he was playing good last week. So I say Toronto wins at home, and hopefully that'll be good for the fans there so they get some more people out to BMO. I think it's BMO Field? Geez, they got low attendance there. It's pretty sad, unfortunately. To wrap up the week, Montreal. The Montreal Alouettes in Calgary. But Bo Levi may be sitting this one out. He hasn't practiced yet. Is there any chance of Montreal stealing one here in Calgary?
I would say there's a chance, yeah. I'm not going to officially pick them to win, but there is a chance for sure. But I think Calgary's going to win. Like I said before, they got a system going. They built that system. They've been doing it for years, and it's effective. So Calgary for the win. For
sure. I think Calgary's got that one unless there's a flu or something in the Calgary team and half the team doesn't show up. Just don't see Montreal beating the best team in the league. Okay, that's predictions here, and we still have a great chunk of interview from Rob Vanstone about some childhood stories. And do we need to set anything else up here? But I think we're going to close out the show with this that last part of this interview.
Yeah, we might as well close it out because it's just such an engaging point of the interview, such an engaging story that he tells. The part that really just stood out for me as I was just sitting across from him listening is it's the passion. That fan passion that you have, I have, the listeners have. We're Rider fans. And Vanstone, he gets to tell the story of the football games. He gets to write the reports all the time, write the columns. But we really get a chance to hear the fan in this Rob Vanstone story. So very good treat for all the listeners out there. Definitely worth sticking around for. So that's it. If we're going to close with, then I might as well say bid you adieu, Mitch.
Yes, we made it through the bye week, so can't wait. We'll be back on Monday.
Okay, stick around. The interview's right now.
You've been covering the Rough Riders for how long?
Started in 1996 when I was named the columnist. I've been following them since infancy. So that's a long time ago.
Right. So what are some, when you look back, just, barring the 2013 Grey Cup, because I think that's everybody's answer, what are some of your personal favorite Rough Rider memories? Well,
the number one memory, and it actually wouldn't be the 2013 Grey Cup, as amazing as that was. It was 1978 at Commonwealth Stadium, last game of the regular season. It was Ron Lancaster's final game as a player. And my mom and I was 14 at the time, and my mom and I went on dash tours to Edmonton to go to the game. And it just seemed to be another game. The Riders were playing out the string. They'd won 3 games to that point. Edmonton was about to win its first of 5 consecutive Grey Cups, but we always went on the bus trips. So the week before, the Sunday before, the Riders had played Winnipeg, and they brought Ronnie in off the bench late in the game when he threw 2 interceptions, bang, bang. Winnipeg ended up winning the game, and Ronnie was booed. His final game at Taylor Field, and there were people who booed him. It's awful. It was just devastating to be there and hear that. It's not like the whole stadium was booing him, but you knew that Ronnie had been booed, and he took it hard, and Bob Hughes ripped people over it, and that was awful. It was one of the worst things I've ever seen as one who's spent a lifetime watching the Saskatchewan Rough Riders. But as luck would have it, Mom and I left the following Saturday for Edmonton on a Moose Mountain bus, and I've never been to a sporting event like it. There's, even before the game starts, the Eskimo fans have put up signs saying, "Hooray, Ronnie," and "Thanks for all the good years," and people are chanting his name. And by the fourth, Larry Dick, who was supposed to be the heir apparent, was making his second consecutive start at quarterback. Well, by the fourth quarter, the offense had kind of stalled, and Edmonton was leading. And the Eskimos fans, it's a meaningless game for the Eskimos. The Eskimos fans started chanting, "We want Ronnie."
Had Ronnie announced his retirement at this point?
He announced his retirement. He was done after that game. It was going to be his last game. So the Eskimos fans, and there was a huge crowd that day at Commonwealth, started chanting, "We want Ronnie." So early in the fourth quarter, Walt Pozadowski, who was the head coach at the time, acquiesces and puts in Ronnie. And as he enters the game, Larry Highbaugh, who was an Eskimo cornerback at the time, reached out and shook hands with him. And Ronnie comes in, and I think on the second possession, ends up throwing a touchdown pass to Joey Walters, and the convert puts the Riders ahead. And then right after that, Jim Germany fumbled. Riders get the ball. Riders end up scoring again with Ronnie sneaking in from the 1-yard line for an insurance touchdown. And so suddenly it's gone from one Sunday to the next, and sorry the story's long-winded, it's gone from one Sunday to the next where Ronnie's being booed in Regina by Rider fans to he's receiving a standing ovation in Edmonton from Eskimos fans who are cheering the fact that their team lost. And it's Ronnie's last game. And among the many things he was known for as a player was his comebacks. And so Ron Lancaster, a week after being booed in Regina, comes off the bench, leads one more comeback, and is beloved in the home stadium of a team that was probably the Riders' greatest rival during the latter part of Ronnie's career. And to have been there and to have seen that, to have experienced that, to have talked to Ronnie about it, 20 years after the fact, nearly 30 years after the fact, and hear his voice still breaking with emotion talking about that game. 2008, only a few months before he died, and I asked him about that game, and he got choked up. And I'll never forget being at that game. I don't think I'll ever be happier. I was at a sporting event. And that includes the 89 Grey Cup. That includes the 2013 Grey Cup. That includes any team in any sport. That Edmonton game where Ronnie pulled it off and got that standing ovation, nothing will touch that. That was the sweetest thing I've ever seen at a sporting venue. Long story, I apologize, but it's pretty close to the heart.
No, that's awesome. That's an amazing perspective because I remember hearing that Ronnie got booed out of the Taylor Field for his last game. I didn't realize there was still another regular season game after that in Edmonton, and I'd never heard the story that he was, cheered like that in Edmonton for the.
It was beautiful, Dylan. It was absolutely beautiful. I remember getting on the bus and the bus ride back to Regina. I don't think any of us. My mom had to work on a Monday morning. She worked for the provincial government. I had to go to school. I was in grade 9 at Campbell Collegiate. And we were supposed to get in at 5 or 6 in the morning. And nobody really cared if they ever got home. It was just, people just savored that ride home. They knew there weren't a lot of Rough Rider fans at that game. It was maybe, and the bus wasn't full. There might have been 40 people among that contingent of Rough Rider fans who were there. So there were a lot of people who saw that game against Winnipeg where Ronnie got booed. There weren't a lot that went to Edmonton to see that last game, and you really feel like you were a part of an exclusive group. And I'm not saying it to be boastful. We just happened to be there, and it was so sweet. I just remember getting on the bus, and everybody was just in such a great mood. The Riders had just finished 4-11-1, awful season, and it felt like they just won 3 Grey Cups because of what we'd just seen Ronnie do. And all of us on the bus had grown up watching him. And, that was sweet. That was just such a sweet, sweet, sweet ride home. It felt like the ride home took about 10 days to get to Edmonton. It felt like took about 2 minutes to get back. Just beautiful. And then I just went right to school. I couldn't sleep. I was so excited.
And that's something that kind of really matches what I see with Rider football. As magic as it is to see the Grey Cup games and to have those big playoff wins and all that, the regular season games, I've seen so many just incredible moments. Excellent perspective. Rob, totally my pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for the interview. Thank you for taking time out. And hey, I look forward to having you back on anytime. Anytime you're interested.
Anytime I get to talk about that game at Edmonton in 1978, I'm pleased to do it. I'm just sorry that I consumed most of your available bytes or whatever the term is on your recorder. But it's always great to chat with you, and look forward to doing it again soon.